I'm Shannon Thrasher, and this is 30-Second Tactics. Let's talk about shooting steel.
So when we're talking about steel targets, first we have to talk about the steel. There's basically two kinds of steel you're going to run into. There's mild steel, which you might make your trailer out of, and it's nothing special. I mean, it's steel, it's hard, but it's not armored steel. Stuff like you might hear commercially referred to as like AR 500. Steel that's been specially made, specially designed, specially treated to be armor, to specifically designed to hold up to many rounds from pistols and rifles. And of course, that's going to depend on the particular steel, the particular manufacturer, importantly the thickness of the steel. As far as mild steel, I would recommend not using that as a target at all. Maybe some rimfire applications, but as cheap as targets have gotten for AR 500 type steel, I would just say use that for everything. Now stands, whatever kind of stand you have, like this one here, that's going to be mild steel, because the idea is that's not getting shot, or maybe occasionally accidentally shot, not hundreds of rounds put on it. And then how it's mounted. Now this little fella obviously has a 2x4 right there. So what's the advantage of that? They're cheap, you got them everywhere. You buy a stud and cut it into 2 or 3 pieces. When it catches enough shrapnel or errant rounds, you just replace it. This particular plate here is just a hanger. You can see it's free floating. This little IPSC style target here is a little different. It has a mount to put it on a T-post. Those are nice too. Kind of the same thing as a 2x4. They're relatively cheap. Around here they're $5 or $6, and they're not at all armor plated. As you can see, this has been chewed up pretty good. But when they get shot up too much, you just buy a new one and replace it. You don't have to replace the target itself for a long time. Now, the way this one's mounted, you see it's got a little spring and it's got give to it. That's very important. If you take these targets and you mount them, firmly somewhere, and they don't have any give, that's going to really increase and change what the bullets do when they hit them. It's going to increase the chance of ricochet and everything else. So however you mount them, they should have a little give to them. Some are even intentionally mounted at an angle, so stuff will be more likely to deflect down into the ground, which is a good thing. You have, your plate rack type things that are designed to give not only a little bit, like these do, but actually, when they're hit, to go completely out of the way. So these are going to last a lot longer with equal shots, because that energy is being used up in moving the weight of this target. Same thing with the pepper poppers. That's a classic old design, goes way back to the 80s, where they're designed to be hit, and some of that energy, rather than denting the metal, is pushing the whole target back. Now you can also mount these targets. They'll have, this one has holes in the bottom for bolts, but some have holes in the top where you can hang them from chains. You can hang them from rope, string. Old fire hoses work pretty good. But the advantage of the hanging is, again, it gives it a lot of give. But if you're using regular chain and stuff, first time that chain gets hit with a rifle round, it's probably going to either break it or damage it enough that you want to replace it. If you have mild steel run up like this, maybe have a little piece of angle iron type steel, or even armor, to deflect any bullets that hit. Now you see this particular one just got a couple mounts here, and this comes out as easy as that. So this is your stand, your mild steel. You can see this one took a round and it just went right through it. It's not designed to stop it. That's just designed to hold it up. The armored steel itself is designed to stop it. So assuming you got good quality steel, armor steel designed as a target, you got it properly mounted where it has some give, and you're at a minimum safe distance. You've done all that. How safe is this to shoot steel? A lot. So that adds the question of, what is a minimum safe distance? Now, I'm not going to tell you X yards or X feet is safe, because I don't need you to come to sue me when you have some random thing hit you in the forehead and you were at that exact distance. I can tell you personally, I don't shoot handguns any closer than 10 yards to steel. That's kind of an arbitrary number, because maybe you can get hit at 11 and maybe you won't get hit at 9. I don't know. That's the kind of a thing I've developed through other instructors and other people shooting. I know of at least one guy who was shooting good quality steel in an indoor range at 10 yards, and a round hit this target just right and came right back and hit him in the chest, and it was basically like he'd been shot. Not quite as bad as if he'd been shot point blank, but it was a bad injury. So it happened. So today we're gonna run a couple little experiments and see how much shrapnel, spall, whatever you want to call it, comes off these targets when they're shot, and what, if anything, you can decide is, you know, a safe distance for you. Now, whether you have some steel targets in your backyard or you go to a range where they shoot a lot of steel, if you look on the ground in front of the targets, you'll find these little tiny paper thin remnants of bullets. This is what hit the target and it just fell to the ground. Well, you could probably tell that's not 115 grains of 9mm. That's just, you know, a shred of what's left. So when it hit and it splattered, where'd the rest of that bullet weight go? Where'd the rest of that lead and brass go? Well, it basically did that. And in a perfect world, if it all goes, you know, 90 degrees to the target, there's no way it's going to come back and hit you. Obviously, you're not going to be standing next to the target. So no one else should be. Nothing in any way that could be dangerous or harmed by a bullet fragment should be anywhere near that target, right? But again, that's a perfect world. So if one of these hits and decides to come back towards you, again, how far back is a safe distance to where you don't get hit at all, much less get hit hard enough to, you know, be considered an injury. So for our little experiment today, we'll be using what I consider some pretty common rounds that you're going to be using out at the range shooting steel. We'll start with 9mm, and then 40 Smith & Wesson, 45 ACP, and 12 gauge, some birdshot and some slug. Now I kind of, when it comes to shooting steel, I kind of put shotguns closer to handguns than I do, say, an AR, because of the velocities involved. You know, you're 1,000 to 1,500 feet, kind of, with most shotguns, even slugs, probably not even quite that high. And again, that's going to compare more to your handgun velocities than your rifles. So there you go. All right, so let's first test the theory that the shrapnel, for lack of a better word, is coming 90 degrees off the target. So I got a couple balloons here, as you can see, almost exactly in line with the target itself. Now, obviously, your skin's a little stronger than a balloon, and a little nick that gets a balloon might not get you. And of course, your eyes are super sensitive. Please, please, please never shoot anything on steel at any distance without some high quality eye protection. And let's back up and see what happens. All right, so 9mm, about 10 yards. And they both popped. So the original piece of the video that goes right here got messed up, so you can't see it. You can just look at this picture of a 2x4 that I used to rebuild the target stand. But what it was is showing you us setting up some cardboard around the target to show where the splatter is, and it'll make sense when you see the after effect here. Sorry. All right, here's some 9mm. All right, so you can see several little fragment holes. Obviously, the bullets are not just disintegrating, they're hitting that steel and going left and right. All right, let's do the 40. All right, we'll do it with a few 40 calibers. All right, and you can see after a few 40 caliber hits, we've added a few little holes. It almost looks like we might be missing a little here. I'm going to scoot these targets back just a couple inches, make sure we're catching everything. All right, we'll try a few 45s. And no big surprise, bigger bullet, bigger pieces of bullet. All right, let's see how the 12 gauge works out. All right, we'll do a couple 12 gauge. First, just a 7.5 bird shot. And a 1 ounce slug. Betting this one makes some spatter. So, a few more little speckles here and there. Now, one thing you might notice is that slug actually moved the target. So, if you're going to be shooting steel with a lot of slugs, like I said, I'm not telling you what a safe distance is, but I would say the further the better. And keep an eye on your targets, because a few hits on a slug from this particular target is going to change the angle and therefore change the where the ricochets or spatter is going. All right, so what we have now, we set the target up, or the cardboard target up right about 6 inches in front of the steel. So we're going to fire through the cardboard, and obviously any nice round holes on this side are going to be the bullets going through. But anything back here is going to be the spatter. Now, again, perfect world, everything's hitting here and going off at 90 degrees. But how much of anything comes back at you? I don't know. Let's find out. All right, we'll start with a 9mm. .40 cal. And some .45. All right, let's go see what that did. All right, so there's the holes going through, and of course they hit the steel about 6 inches later. And then here's the backside. Now, I couldn't possibly count the number of holes in this thing 6 inches away. And again, with enough power to poke through this cardboard. But the big holes, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I'd say 5 of them at least, big enough to be of great concern if that was you. Now again, that's 6 inches away, but that's just to show that it doesn't all go 90 degrees like it's supposed to. Some of it comes right back at you. All right, now we're going to try with these little safety glasses. Now, I'm not telling you, under any circumstances, with no amount of safety glasses, should you be standing 2 inches away from this steel when somebody's shooting it. But for the purpose of this experiment, now you can see on here, these are brand new. They got that ANSI thing. If you look that up, that's like an international safety code, basically saying these are up to spec for safety goggles. Now, it doesn't mean they're shooting glasses. They're safety goggles for, you know, like a factory or something. So again, use your best judgment, do your research, decide what's going to keep your eyes safe. Because if you're blinded and, you know, you complain you got the wrong safety glasses, that really doesn't help. So we'll put a few rounds from each of the calibers in here and see what happens. So, as I think you can see, there's some little pieces of shrapnel in the face there. I think everything hit a little low, so we didn't actually test the goggles. So we're going to set it up a little different height and do it again. All right, so that's definitely got some results that can make the point I'm trying to make, which is wear your glasses if you're shooting steel. Honestly, you should be wearing them even if you're not shooting steel, because you never know what that bullet's going to hit in the backstop. But definitely, if you're shooting steel, safety glasses are just as important as ear protection. If you can see our little fella here. Now, those were all 9mm. It was a total of 6 rounds. The first 3, you know, it just all hit in the face because the target was just a little low. But once I adjusted that, this is a result of the spatter from 3 9mm. And as you can see, there's a big chunk right there stuck in, a bunch of things, enough to crack the glasses. But we picked this up. Look underneath, there's not a bit of damage to them precious eyeballs. Now, I don't want you to have a big old piece of shrapnel in your lip, but compare a big old piece of shrapnel in your lip to one in your eyeball. So one last thing to consider, and we'll call this a video, is all the shots today have been full metal jacket. which is what most people shoot when they're training, but some people like to shoot their doo-doo ammo up or shoot some hollow points and stuff. Just be aware that the hollow points are generally going to be loaded a little hotter, and because of the construction of the bullet, they may perform a little differently terminally once they hit that. So you might have to have a whole different standard of safety when you're shooting hot hollow points. Just be aware of that. Guys, that's what I have for you this time. As always, work, train, repeat. Stay safe.